Hi, welcome back. So now we're going to write a very simple script that just tells the user if a file exists. We've already done this at the shell prompt. Let's do it in a script. So what I've done here is I've started a bash script, but I've used pseudocode. In other words, I've just written out what I want to do, and I'm going to replace this step by step with how we're going to do it. So the idea is that if there is exactly one command line argument, and we'll talk about what that means here in a moment, treat that argument as a file name. And if that file exists, report that the file exists. Otherwise, report the file does not exist. And then, if there is not exactly one command line argument, we want to tell the user how to use the script. So we have two if statements, one embedded inside the other. Now, command line arguments are things like the file names we give to copy or move or remove or list. They are the names of files or maybe command line switches that we supply to the utility when we type it in. So we want to know how many command line arguments there are, first of all. So we can replace if there is exactly one command line argument with, and we know we're going to need a test, right? And we can find out how many command line arguments there are by using a special shell variable number sign. Now, of course, if we want to get to that variable, we need to type a $sign and then a number sign. And this will tell us how many command line arguments there are. Now, if we need to know equality, if we need to know integer equality, we can use -eq. And you can, of course, find these things out by looking at the manual page for test, because we're in a test. And if that number of command line arguments is exactly 1, we have performed that test. Now, remember what I said about if and the constituent parts of the if command. This is the first part of the if command. We can put the then here. Actually, it's more commonly done to put a semicolon here. In other words, terminate this statement, then put then right here on the same line. So now we want to treat the argument. We know at this point there is exactly one command line argument. So we can actually finish this if statement by telling the user how to use the script. So at this point, we can just echo out something like echo. And they've done it wrong, obviously. So we can say usage. And we're calling this file exists, FE, and then file name. And what it does. Report the existence of a file. So that tells the user what to do if they do something wrong. In other words, if they give no command line arguments or 2 or 3 or 10, anything other than 1, then we're going to tell them how to use the program. And then we terminate that outer if with the fee. So we're halfway there. We've got the outer if statement. So now we want to treat this as a file name. So the next step is we need to get that first command line argument, whatever it is, and see if it exists. And we can do that in one step. So the test here is going to be, and again, it's a test. I'll get rid of this. It's a test. And now we're going to check to see if that file name exists. So the way we can do that is with our e-test. The file exists. Remember that one? We did it in the last demo. And then we can just say $1. The name of the script is $0. The first command line argument is $1. The 8th command line argument would be $8. That's right. So we can use our knowledge within the script of the command line arguments to figure out what that command line argument is. In this case, $1 will be interpolated as the file name. And then we can find out with the e-switch if that file, or the e-test, if that file exists. And now we're almost completely done. We're going to report that that file exists. So echo, and then we can say, with double quotes because we're going to interpolate the file name, file $1 exists. So far so good. And then otherwise we're going to report that it does not exist or it wasn't found. So echo file $1, something like not found works. And there we go. So now we're done. All that remains is to test it. So let's save this buffer and exit out. And we're back to the shell. And now, if we change the permissions on it to be executable, fe.shell, our shell script, now we can list to see that it's there. We got a couple of backups, but that's all right. And now, if we say something like, and we also have a foo file here, if we say something like fe.sh, foo, we have a syntax error. So let's fix that. Emacs, fe.sh. Let's fix our syntax error. And this is something you'll get used to doing. Let's see, what could that possibly be? And I see the problem. It's this else that's being reported. We needed then to match our if. So we can do it the same way we did above. And now if we save and exit the script, it should work. No guarantees. You're always debugging. So let's see if it works. Yes, file foo exists. What if we pass it a file name that does not exist? Like bar. File bar not found. So everything's looking good. Now, of course, what we can do is move it to user local bin, give it an alias that takes off the shell extension, and let's do that step at least. Alias fe equals, let's see, fe.sh, and we'll close that, and now we can say fe. Now, if we give it no command line arguments, we should get the error, usage, fe file name, report the existence of a file. If we give it a couple of command line arguments, like fe foo bar baz, it says fe file name, report the existence of a file. It's telling us I only want one file name. So a couple of things here. What we did is we have written a very simple short script that is arguably useful. And we have found out how to determine the number of command line arguments, $number, and also what those command line arguments are. The first command line argument is this. We have determined how we can use that command line argument as a file to figure out if that file exists, -e. We have used the equality test for integers to see if the number of command line arguments is exactly 1. We have used the if statement. There are a couple of things about the if statement that I have not told you yet, like an else if, which we'll cover in the next demo. But we have a very simple script that is doing exactly what we want it to do and telling us whether or not a file exists. Thank you very much.